Welcome back to the E&S Hoover Show. I have my faithful CPA with me here today, Bill Musto. Is it Musto? Musto?
Musto. But
Musto. See, I always butcher names.
it's all good.
It's what I do. But Bill has been my CPA for about a year
Year.
now,
It's been a year and a
roughly.
couple weeks.
I had a really bad run of CPAs there. I went from being completely overcharged by one to then being completely ripped off by the next. And
Yeah,
then
yeah.
Bill actually was nice enough to clean up everything for me and he did a really great job. And so I was like, you know what? Let's bring him onto the show and let's chat a little bit. How you doing, Bill?
Good. Thanks. I appreciate you having me. It's first podcast ever, so take it easy on me.
Oh, we're gonna abuse you. Yeah, we're gonna break you in. So,
Yeah.
you have been a CPA for how long?
So I got my license in 2017. Went dormant there for a while when I was in private accounting, working for private equity owned companies, and then I reestablished it about 2, 3 years back. So
Okay.
basically just had to go through a bunch of CPE, get that back reinstated and kind of pick up from there. So while in private, you don't really do much with a license, so it wasn't really necessary to have it. And they weren't willing to cover the cost to maintain it. So, that time it wasn't really a need in the budget.
Gotcha. And what made you decide that you want to be a certified public accountant, right?
So going back to college, I started off going to school what I thought was computer engineering. I maybe didn't really stick it out long enough. But I took like a web design class and I hated it. I thought, my gosh, what is this? It made no sense to me whatsoever. And there might be computer engineers that has nothing to do with it, but nonetheless, it was code and it was computers. It was all boring to me. So I don't know. I didn't really go into school with intentions of like what I wanted to do. I don't think anybody really knows what they want to do. My wife's family is filled with CPAs, and so I just went for a general business degree. And she was the one who said, well, she was a girlfriend at the time. Um, it's 6 classes to become an accountant, so why not just have that on top of the business degree? I'm like, well, yeah, 6 classes. I need to find some classes, so I did that, and then just kind of kept going from there. The cheesy side is like even earlier than that, I got my taxes done from our family tax prep person, and I got an $81 refund, and her fee was $80, and I was like, "What'd you do? You just punched in a couple of numbers. I can do that." So, I always kind of had that in the back of my mind, and so it all just kind of worked out well, and yeah, so the I went into public accounting, not right out of school, but shortly thereafter, and I just really enjoyed working with small business.
Is that all it is 6 classes?
6 classes for accounting. I mean, there's the business element. There's a business law class I think I took. There's electives, but you have to the core class structure is 6 accounting classes.
Hmm.
At least it was.
So you would use that like in like add on to a typical degree. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. So yeah. I mean, my technical, I guess, my degree is in business with a minor in accounting, but then we were also considered the accounting majors. So I'm not sure if there's. I mean, there probably could have been more because I did take like a payroll class in a community college to make up for the additional credits I needed. Um, so there's other types of classes out there, but the core 6 is what you need to get the degree.
So could you go for like 2 years, like an
No,
associate's degree? So you have to have
no, you have to have the so to get the CPA license. I was the first year you needed 150 credits to sit for the exam. Prior to that was the 120 or whatever was needed. So yeah, you to become a CPA, then yes, you need to go for the full 4-year degree. If you want to just be considered an accountant, I mean, that's a loose term, I guess. So, but yeah, I would say an undergrad could probably work, but don't, I wouldn't go to somebody like that personally.
yeah, you'd avoid
I,
getting your
I,
taxes done.
I would avoid that. I mean, there's a lot of people, you don't have to even be an accountant to get to prepare taxes. You don't even have to be an enrolled agent. So, there
Isn't
are
that
people out
crazy?
there. It is crazy. It's scary sometimes. You see some things, and I mean, I would say those are probably people you find at H&R Block and things like that. Now you can find some good people there, not to make anybody upset, but um, for the most part, my experience has been if I see somebody that came to me after having them filed at TurboTax, I'm sorry, H&R Block or any of those others types of companies, there's things missed or opportunities missed and things like that. So, I mean, it's not a wrong return, but the IRS isn't going to come back and say, "Hey, you could have had more money back." And so that's kind of the more benefit to going to somebody that's a little more seasoned in preparing taxes and in that world. But then there's a whole other side of it too. There's auditing with CPAs, and I can never do an audit. I don't have the training in it. I don't have the care for it. That's my weakest area of accounting because there's just it's a lot of terminology, wording, and you have to essentially say if a company's good or not, and viable. So there's way more to it than I even know to speak on. I'll say that. But so there, you kind of have tax and audit. I just lean more towards the tax side, kind of going back to the $81 refund scooped up by my pair.
Yeah, I remember before I really got into the business world, I was using H&R Block, and then I switched to like my friend's mom who did like taxes on the
Yeah.
side at home or whatever, and I think she used like TurboTax to do them.
Yeah.
And then like it kind of clicked because right after I got into business, I got pretty quickly went to an actual CPA that I was referred to, and that was the guy who eventually started overcharging me drastically. But he was a good CPA. He knew what he was doing. But
Yeah.
there's that commercial that went around. I don't know if you remember, like early 2010s. There's a commercial where it was like the plumber would come out from under the sink and be like, "I know you from somewhere," and they're like, "Yeah, I did your taxes," you know. And it's
No, no,
like
I don't.
that made me like, "Oh wow, I was an idiot for going to these like little."
No, I mean those. Yeah, I mean those are essentially what you have, and no, I mean I would say somebody without the training experience. I mean, I was in public accounting for 3 years, all tax heavy. So, I mean, and that to say like wasn't even the most, um, I could have done more time in there and seen bigger things, but for the most part, I got a good feel for, what's needed and what's required. And just overall talking to clients. I mean, I was put in some situations because I started a small firm. I didn't really have client interaction. Once I got my license after 2 years there, um, I went to a bigger firm downtown. The only reason I didn't stick out much longer is I just hated working downtown, and the hours are just crazy. So, but I mean, I got FaceTime with clients there. I got bigger files to work on, things like that, and a lot of it was real estate heavy and partnerships and S corps, things like that. So I don't really do trust or estates. That's outside my wheelhouse, but I'm happy to bring in another CPA that might deal with those a little more often.
Do you actually enjoy the work that you do? Because I've always jokingly said that if I did your job, I would every day driving to work, I would look for a bridge to drive off for, you know?
No,
And we have a lot of bridges in
we
Pittsburgh, so it
do.
wouldn't be hard to find.
Would be. I mean, I enjoy it. I enjoy more the monthly stuff, I would say. The compliance aspect of things, filing your taxes, paying taxes, it comes with it. But really, accounting is like it's a full year thing. I mean, you're not just doing business this time of year. You're talking to me primarily. You have things going on throughout. So, you can have seasonality to some businesses, things like that. So, as I have a lot of roofing clients, so as we're kind of going into the colder months, they're kind of slowing down in their work, but they're also gearing up for the next season. So there's a lot of things that we want to look at cash flow. We need to make sure have money on hand. So I enjoy that aspect a lot more. Um, and then the tax side, I mean, it's a necessary evil. So if it's something that's a little too big for me, then I'll say, hey, let's pull somebody else in. But if it's really just again, not to say it is as simple as putting numbers in boxes, but if you do the work throughout the year and you have the conversations and you go through the thought process, this time of year won't be as bad. Now it's obviously busy coming into this upcoming season because we have a set time number of time, and I think a lot of companies get into the pitfall of I don't see this guy until a year or two later, especially if they're behind on their taxes. So, we're doing a lot of catch up work, things like that. And then you have the clients, well, why is it so much money? Well, I didn't see you all year. I didn't know what was going on. You didn't reconcile anything, things like that. So, I mean, I don't enjoy that stuff, but it is again necessary. Well, I think every business has that. So,
What's your overall goals for like, are you planning on building your firm up to be
yeah.
larger? You want to stay smaller? Like, what do you
No, I
want to
don't
do?
want to stay smaller because I mean, overall, it does. I think the grind gets to you. I've tried hiring like an accounting manager, somebody to kind of oversee the staff that handles the monthly things. Trying to find a good tax preparer is kind of the challenge right now. So, obviously, I want somebody that can do quality work. so that I'm not having to essentially recreate their work and essentially double the efforts on a file. Um, and if that accounts coming out of school, if you want a quality candidate, you're probably paying 50 to $60,000, and that's might even be lowballing that right now. I think I was back 8 years ago, so
Things changed over the last
yeah,
8 years.
so
Yeah.
it might even be higher. But I mean, it's there's a lot of things developing, I think, in the industry where you still have your brick and mortar accountants and firms, and I think those aren't going to go away. But there's so many people out there just trying to find cheaper or more, but at the same time, quality. So. Um, I mean, there's also tons of companies into it, who supplies a lot of accountants with software. They are also trying to take the tax filing away. I say go for it because I don't want the W-2 individuals, and not to be rude towards them, but that is as simple as punching numbers into a box and pushing it out a tax return. Um, I think those are the companies where, if you have somebody with a business and they need help, um, those will probably never go away from tax preparers and having an accountant. Um, there's just a lot of details that go into it. The tax law changes kind of a little bit year over year. There's not really big changes all that often, but there are little details like bonus depreciation. It goes down a percentage after so long, and then goes through Congress. People will re-enable it to stimulate the economy, things like that. So I think there's some things we have to just kind of keep in mind. But as I want to try to grow, I'm trying to think, where do I grow more? Do I grow the tax side? Do I grow the monthly accounting stuff? The monthly accounting stuff is easier to grow, but it's also a little difficult to get the funnel of clients, if that makes sense. Whereas the individual tax filing and things like that, there's more volume there, and they come to you easier, but you can't charge as much. So
Mm.
it's playing that balancing act. Um,
Hey guys, thanks for checking out this episode. I have just recently revamped my website. Check it out, ianhoover.com, just my name. You can go there, check out what I've been working on, and also collaborate with me. There's a form to fill out on there if you want to be a guest on the show, or if you want to schedule some one on one time with me. Swing over to my website, fill out the form, and let's collaborate. Thanks for tuning in.
yeah, and then again, also trying to find good quality staff to help support it all.
Well, I could definitely help you when you're like, I need to grow this, like, because that's what I'm good
Yeah.
at, right? And honestly, for like somebody like yourself, you get into like a BNI group,
Mhm.
and that's just gonna blow your business up, like it,
Yeah.
because that's really what you want. You want those small business people that may even still be getting their taxes done at
Yeah.
H&R Block or doing it themselves, and really don't have any bookkeeping, have the box of receipts in their closet. And you know where you find those people? You find them at a BNI group because
Out.
there's a lot of very small business people that just aren't quite
Yeah.
ready yet,
I did have a short stint with BNI, and I just got nothing from it. I maybe I didn't stick it out long enough.
How big was the group?
7 or 8 people, maybe.
Oh, that's why. Yeah. You
Yeah.
need to get into like a group with at least 17 to 20 people.
Yeah.
I've actually, there's one group in Cannonsburg that actually has, I think they're up to like 70 people in it. And
Wow.
that's too much,
Yeah,
right?
that's a lot.
Because the whole point of BNI is to build quality relationships with the people in that
Yeah.
group, right? Because it's almost like for those of you that are listening and don't know, it's kind of like a business cult where like we agree to give each other referrals and build relationships with each other. And you can't build relationships with 70 people.
Yeah.
There's not enough time in the week and time in the
Yeah. The
month.
one-on-ones
The
and
one-on-ones, like you would like literally if you did one-on-one a week, it would take you 70 weeks to get
yeah.
through it. It's
So
just not
yeah.
gonna work. So I think that the smart spot is to get into one of those kind of mid-size, the 17 to 30 type of groups. And if you can do that, it would probably be really beneficial for
Yeah.
you. But you got to be ready for that. You got to have like the staff in place
Yeah.
and then
I think that's half
everything.
the battle is having, because I learned that you can have somebody go in place of you, and just trying to grow a business, you have client needs, and um you're still kind of learning this. So this was 2 years ago that I officially kind of quit my 9 to 5. And so I started doing that, but at the same time it's like I have to get this stuff done for my clients. I just signed a big client, things like that. So um when I would be there, I just felt like I was wasting time and I wasn't really building connections. And maybe it was just a smaller group. And I think I probably did it for a quarter. So I probably could have done it a little longer. But um, I would keep giving referrals out, and I'm just sitting there like, okay, well, maybe next week. So, um, I don't know. And there's every now and then something I do. I mean, I met my lawyer there. I met a financial advisor there. So I mean, I have good connections with them, and they've sent me some referrals here and there. But this has all been post BNI, if that makes sense.
I say that's how I met you is through my attorney, which I don't think is the attorney you're talking about because Matt hasn't been in a BNI group for a really long
No,
time.
no. So I
I
mean, I
think
I did reach out to Matt more so. This guy, he just kind of kept sending me stuff, and I thought, well, maybe I'll start using him a little bit more.
if I
But
remember correctly, Matt said he met you at a trial or something, and
a former client of mine, and I believe possibly his, we met through that process,
through that
and
litigation.
yeah, I'll leave it at that.
He's just like, this guy's really smart and knows what he's talking about. And I was like, well, that's half the battle.
Yeah.
I really think the prior CPA I had was a really smart guy too. I don't know what his deal was.
I think a lot of people. I mean, I feel like the accountants have a very stereotype about them. They're quiet. They just don't like to be bothered and just want to work, keep their head
Introverts.
down. So yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, and to an extent, I think I am a little bit of an introvert, but at the same time, I mean, I think there are still some out there that have a sales element to them, and they can talk well, and they may know it, but it could just also be a little bit of like the how much time do they have to devote to doing what they're actually doing. And I think, sometimes we all find ourselves in that. Any business, you can be the salesperson, but then you also have to be the production person, and then you also have to be the marketing person. So like, where do we fall in that? Uh, and like, what's your strength? So if you are more of a salesperson than a production person, then lean more into sales. Get somebody to do the production for you. So I mean, I feel like I'm experiencing that a little bit myself. Where I don't really like sales, but I seem to do it fairly well because I'm doing okay. um, but at the same time, I think a lot of my clients have come from referrals, so I think my work more so speaks for itself. So I want to stay on the production side, but I need somebody kind of out there feeding the pipeline, and that's the so again, I'm looking at my business and growing it. Um, maybe I go brick and mortar one day, and unfortunately, I don't really want to do that because there's just a huge overhead cost there, and
I don't think there's a need for it anymore.
I think some people still want it, if that makes sense. Now, I mean, I know my wife doesn't really want it on the cost side, but she wants it because, like, every now and then I'll meet a client at my house and, have a 5, 3, and 1 year old. So sometimes it gets a little crazy. And, trying to maneuver around, not, having them involved. And it's kind of neat for them to see at the same time. But, um,
I mean, you're always welcome to use our conference room. It's barely ever used. It's just,
yeah.
hey, is it available Monday at
Yeah,
9? Yeah,
these are
sure.
like
Have at it.
neighbors. I have like neighbors that are clients, and it's like,
Okay.
they know what I do and they know where I'm at, and it's like I don't really want to meet here though. So, um, but yeah, I mean they're basically just getting off work and they're coming at like right before dinner time or right before the kids are about to go to bed, things like that. So I can't blame my wife at all. But
I,
yeah,
I think brick and mortar is just going to be dead completely in the near future. Like I think that the large companies out there, they realize during COVID that
hmm
like you have 70 to 80% efficiency of these folks working from home. Yeah, you're gonna have the one employee every once in a while who buys a mouse mover or whatever, and but they're now figuring out ways to catch that,
yeah,
right? And then they just terminate those people. But you have those, you're gonna have 70, 80% of the efficiency because
yeah,
not everybody goes to an office is super efficient anyways, right? They
no,
they go to the John and take their deuce, right? They they stand at the water cooler and talk about fantasy football, like all that
oh
stuff.
yeah,
So you lose some efficiency anyways. But even if they're at 80% of the efficiency, the cost savings of
yeah,
not having a huge office is significant. And then you just get like a Regis for the CEO and the COO, whoever else you need, right?
yeah,
So that might be something for you is just get a cheap office
yeah.
space. I mean, honestly, we could even rent you an office space in here and you can use the conference. I don't,
That
it's a little
there
bit of a drive for you though, right? Where do you live at?
I'm east of the city, so
So you'd have to go through two tunnels to get here. Probably not
yes.
ideal.
Yeah, that's not an ideal space, but um, oddly enough, I have a lot of clients out this way. So, but no, I mean, like a lot of my clients actually, I have clients in 7 or 8 different states right now. So, I mean, I've never shaken their hand, but we do a lot of Zoom calls and we go
Yeah.
through. So, and these clients we're doing more like, you know, budgeting, simple forecasting, just to kind of get them, there's a lot of new changes to what they're really accustomed to. So my last two clients are 7 months behind on their books. And so we get them caught up, and then we actually start looking at what's your available cash, how many leads do you have coming in? How many of those leads do you convert? And, so once we kind of have actual data in front of us, we know what to focus our efforts on. And okay, well, maybe overhead's not too high. Maybe you're just not producing at a profitable level at the operation. So, or maybe overhead is too high, and then what do we need to cut? So those are the things that it's just like, you're not surprised come tax time. If you actually look at your numbers throughout the year, you're expecting to make money. And then, the conversations happen organically, especially going into October. Hey, we're up. You have a profit of say 250,000. Like, what do you want to do?
Let's go shopping.
Yeah, basically time to go shopping. And I always say to my clients, like, that tax deductions are not free. So, that there's a reaction to everything. And then what's the goal? Are you looking to not pay Uncle Sam, or are you trying to like keep all this money? Because realistically, if you need something, go buy it, but you're going to have more money at the end of the day, sometimes paying the tax. And I know that's not the popular answer, but if you need a work truck, you need two new work trucks, you need whatever. Those are quick, easy answers. If you want to build a good culture, put money into retirement accounts, things like that, for your employees and also yourself. So there's ways to avoid taxes legally, but we're not here to lie, and we're not here to cheat on our taxes. So we have to be careful. Some people try to bend the rules and say, "Oh, my gym membership is 100% necessary because I get all my business there." Well, in the eyes of the IRS, it's not. So we have to be careful with that kind of stuff for sure.
Even if you could show proof that you met certain number of clients from the gym, you still couldn't write that off.
I will not take the deduction, and that's where if I lose a client at this stage of the game, I'm okay with it. So, because at the end of the day, I can be held liable for that too.
If you can't afford to not write off $30 a month or
Yeah.
whatever it is, and
Yeah.
I guess some gym memberships are more expensive, but
Yeah.
for the most part they're pretty cheap.
Yeah, I had one client one time, looking for tax deductions, and he actually was kind of doing his stuff, but he wasn't paying timely. And not just me, but also his attorney. And I'm like, well, I see two bills right there. You can go ahead and pay. And there you go. There's your deduction. He goes, well, then I won't have much money left over. And I was like, okay, then you're going to pay Uncle Sam. So,
You might
a
as well
quarter of
pay
what
your
that.
bills.
Yeah. So pay your bills, and you'll have the deductions. But, there's a lot of nuances to, cash accrual versus type of accounting.
Yeah, I guess your profession, you're probably you're probably dealing with people that want to borderline illegally evade paying taxes
Yes.
more than any other industry, right? Like, cause like there's like I could count on my one hand how many people have tried to do something illegal inside of like the real estate realm,
Yeah.
like really, really illegal stuff. Like I had a client one time that negotiated with the seller like off the record,
Yeah.
and like they came up to a price on paper. And then after the closing, everybody was done. They're like, okay, we need the room for a little bit. Everybody left. They did whatever they did.
Yeah.
And it's like, am I liable now? Because I'm pretty sure they did something,
Yeah.
completely illegal. But you're dealing with that on a regular basis. You almost have to like, you have to really figure out like, is this something that can be written off? Is this not? And then like you have to tell your client like, hey, I know you were stupid and you spent that money, but you can't write that off.
Yeah.
Hey guys, thanks for checking out the latest episode of the E&S Hoover Show. If you want to support me, please swing by Amazon, check out my new book, Short-Term Memory Loss. It's a book about sales, but more importantly, it's a book about how to improve your life with sales. Even if you're not a salesperson, this book will help you improve your life. It'll help you get a promotion at your job. It'll help you negotiate a better deal on a car. You can use sales to improve just about every aspect of your life. So if you wouldn't mind, swing by Amazon, pick up a copy today. Or if you're an Amazon Kindle subscriber, it's free. Just check out the book. Let me know how you like it. Thanks.
Like there's one guy he just bought a piece of land, and the purpose of the land was to build his own personal residence on it. And he goes, what if he said the land was for business use? I'm like, it's still land. You can't depreciate land. Land just doesn't depreciate. So, the whole conversation there, he's like, well, what about cost segregation study? Because there was, a piece of there was like a barn or something on it. I was like, well, yeah, I mean, we can, but we're not like you're telling me this is for personal use, not for your business. You want to make it your business, but it's zoned for residential housing. So you're not going to go build a business place of business in between your neighbors essentially. So again, you can work from home, you can do things like that, and you hear things all the time, Snapchat, TikTok, all whatever. I'm not even sure Snapchat does it, but um the Augusta rule, things like that. And I mean, like, yeah, there's things to it, but realistically, most people don't qualify for it. And I hate when my clients send me TikTok stuff because it's like you're taking tax advice from somebody with their hat on backwards.
Wait,
So,
wait,
you know,
people send you
oh
TikToks?
yeah, all the time. There's one client in
Really?
particular, and I really value him as a client. So I don't mean this in a rude way at all, but he sends them to me the most.
Really?
Yeah, and it's like I sometimes I just don't answer them because it's just like I'm in the middle of something and I forget about it. But I don't have TikTok, so I have to like sometimes send it to my younger sister and say, "Hey, can you video screen this?" Because TikTok makes you sign up for an account. I just don't want one. But
Mhm.
yeah, there's so many false things being said and on there. And this one in particular, the guy was like, set up a it was like four different words type trust and then lease all your stuff back to your business. I'm like, I mean, I see what you're trying to do, but I mean, realistically, it just, I don't know. And the best part about it was he said, I paid my lawyer $15,000 to let me know if this was legitimate. Well, your lawyer's not doing your taxes primarily, typically. So, I mean, there's just a whole slew of these things that I get from time to time and I just laugh at them. So, um,
See,
yeah,
I personally love TikTok. I don't look
no.
on it for tax advice, right? Like
It comes.
that's
I get probably because of my algorithms, the way they
mm,
like on Facebook or Instagram. Like I get these things that pop up from time to time, and even like other accountants trying to sell sometimes make it in my feed, and it's just like you really have to be careful with who you pick because some of them come off sleazy, and I mean that's their pitch, and they're doing well, but you're probably going to get a notice in the mail 2 to 3 weeks later. So, um,
yeah, I never experienced the notice thing until my second CPA, and I'm not a big fan of the notice thing because
yeah.
every time it's like, oh, what now? You know, it's
Yeah,
like,
I know the feeling because a lot of times, especially if I have power of attorney and there's a box to check to send me the mail as well. I'm just like, and if it has my name on it, I'm like, what? Like, what do I got going on? And it's just like we changed your deposit frequency on your payroll. I'm like, okay, well that's I don't have to do anything with that and just give it my payroll company. But I just like, yeah, notices are not fun. Typically, once you start to get them, you're probably going to get them for another year or two. That's just been my experience of like that if they did one thing wrong, there might be a couple other areas of the business like payroll. It's its own separate branch of tax notices. So, yeah, those things are just never fun to deal with.
yeah, I don't know. It's one of those things that I see the IRS letter and I'm like, it's just never good,
Oh, it's
right?
anxiety. And now
Like
I have like the mail preview in my email, so like I see what's coming in the mail that day. So like until 2 o'clock, my mail rolls around.
the what?
You can sign up to preview your mail. Like basically they scan it and then you can see what's coming a day or two in advance. I don't remember why I did that. I think I automatically got signed up for it when I moved. Because I had to obviously
How much does that cost?
free. I have not paid anything for it at least. So
Really? It's
um
like through the USPS?
yeah, I mean like it was I set up the process 4 years ago now, and it's every day I get a preview of my mail, and then they show you what's coming in packages, what's I said it might be a day or two from when it comes, but yeah, so it's nice because there have been a couple things lost, but like I had the image there because it's like so I know something should have come in, but
Mm.
somehow along the way it just didn't. So in some cases it helps because then I can reach back out and say, hey, I never received this, and they reissue it. So that's not why I did. I truly just somehow got signed up for it. But anyways, I'll see sometimes a notice on there, and I'm like, gosh, now I'm like for like the next 4 hours until my mail gets here, I'm gonna wonder what's going on.
I
So
literally got yelled at by the post office because I refused to install a mailbox at my house.
why?
Well, so some of it's out of principle. It really was. It's so I live out in the sticks. I have a PO box that I pay money for, right? So I mean, I have a PO box. I have a business address. My personal mail goes somewhere else, and then so I move into the new house, and uh, I found out like a month later, there's no mailbox at the house, right? And I found this out because they try to deliver a package to me, and they wouldn't leave the package because I had no mailbox. And I was like, oh, wait a minute here. They wouldn't have fit in the mailbox anyways, right?
Yeah,
Like, so I
yeah.
had to drive to the post office, pick up this package, and then they lectured me like, you need to get a mailbox or da 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 da.
Job
We're gonna just
security.
start sending back your mail or whatever. And just the way they kind of lectured me on it, and the fact that they wouldn't deliver a package that would not have fit in a mailbox, I was like, you know what? You're not getting any of my
I
like.
will say it is like I got a smaller mailbox recently, and they really spit stuff in there. So they may have wanted to try to get it in there.
I don't know. It was like a 5 pound bag of coffee, I think. So I don't think it was going to fit in my mailbox, but I could be wrong. I very well could be wrong. They can do some amazing things over there at the post office. But yeah, I mean, you're going to find when, you and I are kind of in the infancy stage still, and you're going to, as you get to know me more, you'll find out that I'm sometimes just stubborn and I'm just going to do stuff because I feel like it's the right thing to do. So I'm just no longer going to have a mailbox. I have a PO box, I have a business address, and I have where my personal mail goes for when somebody really needs to get a hold of me, and that's it.
Yeah, we'll work through it. We'll work through it as things come up. But so do you have a mailbox now? Or
No, I still don't have a
So
mailbox in my house.
so like you just handed me mail before we started. Where did that go? Your PO box?
That went to where my personal mail goes.
Okay,
Yeah.
gotcha. Okay,
It
all right.
just doesn't come
We'll
to
keep
my
that off the
house.
record
Yeah,
then.
keep that off the record. But okay, so one thing I wanted to touch on a little bit, we just had an election.
Mhm.
Not to get too political, I don't care who you voted for, any of that crap.
Yeah.
But there's now the Department of Government Efficiency that's going to
Yeah.
be going in, and there's been a lot of talk about how they're going to be dismantling the IRS, at least a
Sure.
large percentage of the IRS's staff, right? Because they're just, nobody likes the IRS. And then, Trump has previously said how he wants to get to the point where they're going to have simplified returns or whatever, where you just basically fill out a postcard and mail it in.
Yeah.
Like, what do you think the odds are that any? Because I'm sure you would almost love it if they reduce the regulations because it would make your job easier. Now, you don't want to make
Yeah.
it too easy to where your job goes away,
Yeah.
but like, what's your overall thoughts on all this that's going on? I'm sure
Uh,
you're paying attention.
I actually, I mean, this is I briefly pay attention because I got really into this stuff maybe even the last election time frame, when it was Trump Biden, and it just so many things. You hear them talk so much, and things just that never come to fruition. So I kind of handle things as they are actually gaining steam and things are happening. I mean, that's probably a huge thing that has to pass through all branches of the government, realistically. Um, I know people don't like to advocate for the IRS, but I will say, like in some capacities, they are well understaffed. We heard years back that they wanted to hire like 87,000 new agents, and I think I read somewhere once where they only got like a third of that number filled. So, and then the other side is you have the people that have been there for years and they're retiring, and then now you have new people coming in. I mean, I don't think anybody really ever grows up saying I want to work for the IRS. So, there's like most industries, I think you're probably struggling to find good help. And so, I mean, I went through an audit 2 years back with a fairly young agent. He did a good job. I would say he knew the tax code fairly well. But I mean, I don't know if I can speak the same thing about everybody. I mean, I think for everybody in your industry, you probably have some people that don't do as well as others. So I'm sure that you have that same situation there. Dismantling, reducing regulations, I'd be all for it. Especially at the individual level. It's complicated at the business level. We'll hold on that, but um, the individual level, especially if you're just getting a W-2, I mean, shouldn't you already know what your taxes should be? I mean, you have two kids, you have two household income, you can kind of predict that number in advance. Now, things get a little messy where you have rentals, investments, things like that, but yeah, I mean, overall, I think somebody's still going to want help. I mean, I have people that called me up and just looking for pricing, and they're like, "Oh, I don't trust myself to do it on TurboTax, so I just want somebody to do it." And then I tell them the price, and they don't want to pay that price, and I say, "Oh, then do TurboTax." So,
Yeah.
H&R Block and them, they're still not cheap. They still charge you. I mean, I think you see free and stuff all the time, but that stuff kind of used to bother me more when I would see like they're giving tax services out for free, but I was also just coming into the industry. I mean, think about how many people that would truly impact on a job level. So,
Well, it's not free. Nothing's
Mhm.
ever free, right? But
Yeah,
what it is they waive their filing fee or whatever they charge to file your taxes. But they do that when you sign up for their like other programs, like their
yeah,
you get your money like instantly or whatever because they're making money on that,
right.
right? They collect your refund and they're giving you 90% of it, keeping that 10%, which is way more than their filing fee, right? So it's
Well,
kind of a genius thing if you think
it
about it.
is. So as a CPA, we're not allowed to do that. And that was like one of the things I had a tax program saying, I could essentially elect to do that. And like, I shouldn't even be able to have this option. But again, there's people out there that aren't CPAs doing tax returns. So
Why are you not allowed to do that as a CPA?
I didn't
Like,
look into it. I just accepted it and moved on.
can't control what you can't
There's
control.
some things I'm not going to fight.
See,
So
that's where you and I differ. Like, if I get told I can't do something, I'm gonna be like looking at it like if it makes sense of why I should be able to do it,
yeah.
I'm gonna dig down that rabbit hole and try and figure out if there's a loophole or
No, I mean, I don't have to give them a copy of their tax return if they didn't pay for it. And, I mean, I am required to give them back their documents that they gave me, but for the most part, like, I don't know. That's too much to fight for and get into. So, if they don't want to pay me, I'm not going to go to the magistrate at this point. It just costs more money to do that. It feels like half the time, in some situations, but, realistically, I got to the point now where I kind of can pick and choose who I take as a client. So, that is half the battle because there's sometimes you just get somebody and it's true the people that pay the least are the ones that want the most. So, I've learned over the years who to kind of navigate that with and how to avoid getting into those pitfalls. So,
Hey guys, thanks for tuning in to the latest episode of the Ian S. Hoover Show. If you're enjoying this content, please follow me on social media at Ian S. Hoover on X, TikTok, YouTube. Let's connect and collaborate. Thanks for tuning in.
yeah, worrying about collecting off their refund. I don't know people's financial situation. They may truly need that money. They may have medical bills. I don't want to get into the weeds of why they were expecting this money and then they didn't get it. So if they don't want to pay me, then I won't do their return next year.
Hmm.
Simple as that.
makes sense.
Yeah.
I mean, you should just collect that money up front, though.
I don't know. I think I feel like a lawyer. So there is a lot. I'd say the last couple of years I've heard this more, and maybe just because I kind of was starting more in my own business, but like there is like a retainer model for some accountants, and I personally, if you're not doing stuff on a monthly basis, I don't like that. I mean, I don't know why an individual would be on a retainer basis to get their tax return done. Now, if you have a business associated, then you're actively doing work that makes sense. But, um, I don't really want to take on too many more just W-2 individuals with a couple investments. So,
I
look,
mean, I love the retainer model. I get paid up front. I
yeah,
know exactly, and I use it a little bit in real estate too. I mean, a lot of people think that just attorneys do retainers, but it's like if I'm meeting with somebody, like let's just say I'm meeting with like a brand new flipper,
mhm,
and I could just tell this can be number one, can be a lot of work. Number two, they may never buy anything, which is how I get paid as a real estate professional,
yeah,
right? And number three, like they're kind of wishy-washy, feel like maybe they might be a time waster. Like I'm probably gonna say, hey, you need to pay me a retainer up
yeah,
front, and maybe it's a refundable retainer, depends on the situation. But yeah, I think that you have to. The one thing I've learned in business is you have to value what you're worth
yeah.
and to put yourself in a situation where you got to run around trying to collect money from people is just
It
stupid.
is probably the worst part, and I hate having to go and collect because especially sometimes working directly with the business owner and the individual, and it's like we just had a conversation last week how we're going to grow this business, and at the same time I'm asking you for payment. So it's just I don't know, counterintuitive, I guess it feels in a sense, but yeah, I would say that it happens. To where I've not gotten paid. And there's one guy I did try to go to the magistrate, ultimately filed bankruptcy, and then I had to pay attorney fees, and
Oh
that
boy.
nothing then basically nothing came of it. So, um, but and then I try to just turn things off to that because I don't want to see that he started another business, and then I don't want to, which I saw unfortunately, but yeah, I mean, I try to just kind of take things in stride, look for good quality clients, and if they're already trying to take the deductions of the $30 gym membership, then let's just not even go any further.
They might have
So,
got bad advice though,
yeah,
so you got to give them a
yeah,
shot, right?
yeah.
I mean, I personally love how I have it set up with you, and anytime, I mean, I tried to get it with my original accountant, and he was the reluctant one on it. But like I just wanted to have a monthly fee come out of my bank account, and I
Yeah,
don't have to worry about it, and everything's covered in that monthly fee, and
yeah,
then I don't have to worry about like similar to the IRS, like. When I was getting these bills from my old accountant and they weren't cheap, they were
yeah.
really expensive bills. Like every single time I saw one, I'd roll my eyes and I'd just leave it on my desk for like a
Mm-hmm.
month because I didn't want
Yeah.
to open it. Now that's why I have Manny because I procrastinate when it comes to opening
Mail's the
mail.
worst. It is the
Oh,
absolute worst.
like I would like wait like 6 weeks to pick up my PO box
Yeah.
and then I'd let it sit on my desk for another couple of weeks before I open it and then I'd not pay it for another couple of weeks past that. And it's not because I didn't have the money. It's just because I
You hate Legos
yeah,
sometimes. Yeah.
I just hate mail. It's
Yeah.
just clearly I don't even have a mailbox.
Yeah. No, I mean the way that we have our stuff set up, I mean I think it helps though too. I mean, I wouldn't be able to do this without staff. So, I mean, Connie from via email, but
Hmm.
Connie and I we worked together in a previous company, and then she went to move down south with her daughters. They ended up moving back. And but at that time, this is all during COVID. They moved down. I quit my job because I just couldn't take the 80-hour work weeks anymore, and just truly felt like we were going nowhere. And but yeah, so Connie and I reconnected, and she's great to have on. I'd love to have her on more time, but she just doesn't want to. She doesn't like being stuck behind a computer. She wants to be out in the world and talking to people. So maybe one day she'll switch over to working more with me. But
Maybe
so
she'll be your salesperson.
yeah, she's definitely a fun time. She can have she can bring life to a party. She doesn't think that, but anybody that we all ever used to work with would, I think, back me up on that. But no, she's good at what she does. I wouldn't want to put her in sales. So if I want somebody in sales, I probably want somebody that knows accounting, but they also are a salesperson, realistically. So, but then I mean, right now I kind of have a good referral source from my clients. So I haven't really had a need for true sales, but it's also more taking those calls and working through them. Um, Something I try to do a lot now more lately is compromising on price. I used to feel like I would, okay, I'll give you less time, but then I'm not getting the quality of the output here. So you'll hear a lot of fractional CFO, and I hate that there are bookkeepers out there doing fractional CFO work because have you ever been a CFO? Have you ever been in that position to kind
What
of,
the hell is fractional
so
CFO?
you go to a CFO. I mean, you work at a business, they have a CFO, and that's, they're probably making 150,000, if not $300,000 a year. So a fractional CFO, you basically pay the same hourly rate, but you only have them for 10 to 20 hours a month. So,
Hmm.
and it's great on the accounting side because yeah,
Are
you can
they
really
1099? They W-2?
1099. Yeah.
Okay.
So I mean, like I have two clients right now under that model. And realistically, it could probably handle up to five, but just trying to make sure you're handling with everything else I have going on. But where I was going with that. There's bookkeepers doing this service out there, and it's like you've never done this. So how, like, what qualifies you? Are you just giving reports out? So
They took a QuickBooks training course.
yeah, they're out there too. And there's this one company, and I actually subscribed to it just to see what it was about. And yeah, they give me some good templates and things, and some training to how to sell the service. But prior to me going and starting my own business, I was working in a private equity firm at a fairly high level and teaching these things already. So it kind of helped me to live it for a while, and then but now I'm working with other companies out there, and it's just like you're a bookkeeper. I'm sorry, and bookkeeping is very essential. That's why I have Connie. That's why I have more bookkeepers coming on staff. Um, but to sit there and predict cash and talk about budgets, and I'm not saying you can't be good at it, but um, you want to just be careful who you kind of have guiding you, and look at what their back end credentials are. So you don't need to be a CPA to be a CFO, but it definitely does help because you can put through a lot. So
One thing I'm big on is, and you probably already can figure this out, is I'm big on investment, right?
mhm.
So early on in my career, I got obviously real heavy real estate. I would say 99% real estate was my asset class.
Hmm.
Now I've tried to diversify a little bit more, and I'm going to continue diversifying over the next couple of years. I have a buddy got me pretty big into crypto, and I've done some things there. But what are you invested in as a CPA? Like, what do you
Yeah.
invest in your own free time?
I mean, I was heavily doing stock trading, probably 5-ish years ago, and I kind of stopped with that because it just like I don't really want to deal with it. I don't want to deal with the ebbs and flows of the market and seeing things go up. And I'm kind of becoming a more of a happy uh, passive investor. If that makes sense. So just give it to the guys that I trust to make the money, and if they have to take some off the top, then I'm happy to pay it to them. So. Um, Crypto, I was in it. I took myself out of it. I went in it again. It's too much like emotional turmoil for me. So I truly just, I don't want to do it. I looked into real estate investing. I apologize to all the real estate agents that I was a tire kicker to because I just, and I'll say the guy that um, kind of went out to me with a couple places. He also was a client, never paid. So I called it even. I
Yeah.
wasted his time and he didn't pay. So,
You have
um,
real estate agents not pay you? That is
yeah,
crazy.
but I'm not. I won't name names or anything. But yeah, it happens. I mean,
It should never
it's
happen.
once a
I'm
year,
sorry.
and it could have been one of the things that maybe they missed the email, and I don't know. It can be a number of things. He was a client for 2 to 3 years, and he didn't pay the final year. So I don't know. I mean,
Hmm.
and to my knowledge, nothing happened. But um, I know he's busy in his life and got married and stuff changing. So maybe they went with the wife's CPA, or I don't know. Who knows? But um, anyways, I wasted his time. But I mean, I just don't have the patience right now to do it. I'm really kind of focusing on growing the business, finding I you're never going to be able to clone yourself. And in some capacities, I would love to clone myself. At the other side, I want somebody better than me in certain roles too. So. Um, yeah, I mean, I offered somebody, we'll call it a controller position or accounting manager, however you want to word it. And I went in heavy. I really wanted to get a good quality person. They said yes. 2 weeks later, they accepted the counteroffer to their current employer. So, good help. Again, going back to that, good help is hard to find. So, and this would be somebody not even touching taxes. This would be somebody just dealing with clients on a routine basis, overseeing the staff, making sure the work's getting done, things like that. And
So ideally, they don't even need to be a tax professional.
no, I mean, I just need good quality accounting because
Hmm.
tax prep is so easy once you have good, clean numbers to work with. It's the stuff that really bogs down tax professionals is not having the runway to prep and plan for it. So, I mean, again, if we have good clean numbers, there's no reason we shouldn't be done early in the year, tax filing season. There are some advantages to going on extension, and I think the one thing I've never really personally done it, but I worked under a CPA at the time. They essentially put the return on extension, and they indicated that they were going to put money into a retirement account. Um, a SEP IRA. SEP IRAs, you can contribute up to like 60 some thousand dollars, but it has to be 25% of your earned income. So obviously you have to pay yourself on a W-2 fairly high amount. Um, but they didn't have the money come April 15th, but they knew they would have the money come October 15th. So they basically bought 6 months to accumulate that funds. They filed the return. I'm sorry, they put it on extension and filed the next day, but they had 6 months to basically come up with that
Hmm.
money. So there's things like that. I mean, I don't need somebody to know those little details because I'm not trying to get that complicated right now. I mean, those are some high individual net worth individuals, I should say. But I just want to get good, clean accounting. We understand what the taxes due are. We can make some tax moves before year end, and if not, then so be it. I had a friend call me and he was like, "I need the cash on hand, so I'm gonna buy what I need. Again, buy a need, not want, and kind of just take the rest from there." But I mean, how are you going to be mad paying $5,000 in taxes when you made $80,000 more this year over last year? So I don't know. There's you just kind of have to take everything into to account when you're having these conversations.
Gotcha. Interesting. What's your favorite business book?
Mm, I don't read as much as I'd like. I realistically, so I wanted to read. I'm kind of looking into like EOS operating systems. So I can't really say exactly what that's for, but or what that stands for. Um, I read it a little bit back when I was working at a private equity company, and it really does apply to how, a good way to run your business and operate it. I think it's a series of 4 books. I think the one name is called Take a Grip or Get a Grip, and I forget what the other one is, but I just got it back out of the archives. I'm going to start reading that. And I told myself though, before I start, like if I'm going to push myself to read, I need to start reading the Bible. Like that to me, that's something that's important. I want to just, understand it more. Um, it wasn't something really heavily pushed in my family, but I'd say I'm relatively new to my journey in that world. But and I started it. I start get busy. I put it off. So these are things where I know I fall short on reading. Um, in terms of business, like specific, I can't say that I've ever found a book that I've enjoyed to read in business talk, because it's one person's opinion. Even business podcast, I tend to have to take some of what these people are saying with a grain of salt, because it's like, it's just this one person's opinion, and you go somewhere else and get somebody else's opinion. So I try to gather as much information as possible before making decisions, but reading, unfortunately, I just can't say. I have not done enough to find an exact book.
Hmm. Okay.
Uh,
I would have pictured you were a big reader.
no, I was for a very short period of time, and then I just fell off the bandwagon with it. Um, I feel like a lot of times I don't, because I mean, I'm looking at a screen all day. I'm looking at spreadsheets. I'm looking at numbers, and I just like to read sometimes thinks it's a kind of takes a toll. I was really big into ebooks 2, 3 years back. Simple Path to Wealth was the one that I kind of enjoyed, and it's basically saying like you can be a millionaire, but it's not going to be tomorrow. You just got to basically find good investments, put money away, but before you do that, pay off your debt. Don't be in $10,000, $20,000 worth of debt and then taking your money that you do have available and putting it into the market, because maybe you get a 10% return,
But you're
net
paying
return,
8%
or
interest
even
or
15, 20% on credit cards. So
yeah.
yeah, I mean that's a very good one for any person, not even just business related. But then the Bigger Pockets group, they're very big in rentals and real
Hmm.
estate. I enjoyed a couple of their books as well. So yeah, it's been a few years. I can't remember what the name of it was.
Yeah, they have some
So
good books. I mean, I in the real estate investment space, I think a lot of the books are they embellish a lot.
yeah,
And
I
I
would agree with that.
and I always say my favorite book was one of the first books I didn't read a whole lot when I was younger, and one of the first books I ever read was Rich Dad Poor Dad,
Yeah,
and that was to this day it's like one of the few things my brother ever did for me was he handed me that book and said you got to read this. I think I was like 16 at the time, but even in that book, there's a lot of great information. However, they never said like, "Oh, this is what happens when a national pandemic happens," right?
yeah,
Like, 'cause there's
yeah.
never been a national pandemic, right?
Oh
So it's
yeah,
like you can do everything you read and learn about, but there's still going to be real world things that are going to happen that you're just not prepared for, and you if you're not prepared when that happens, you could be in a world of hurt.
yeah,
Like well, I'm very fortunate. We only had like I think 2 tenants out of all my tenants that decided to not pay rent, and I got lucky there. One of
yeah,
them was because they legitimately had a hardship. The other one just thought he didn't have to pay rent
yeah.
because the
I'm
government
shocked
told
that it's
him.
only two, because that's. I mean, I had clients that were basically losing properties over it. I mean, they were
Yeah.
just in a situation where they couldn't afford it. So
Well, the banks are telling you still got to pay your mortgage, but then
exactly,
the government's telling the tenants they don't have to pay theirs.
yeah,
I came up with a unique loophole, and this is not legal advice. And I don't recommend this. It's just something I came up with, right? So I just like it was literally in lockdown because like they told us we couldn't work. We
yeah,
were the only state in America that COVID did that basically they shut down real estate for them. We were not essential or whatever. So
okay,
my business got shut down for 2 months and I'm sitting at home. And so my property manager really couldn't do much either. And I had this one tenant that was just like, I'm not paying rent. I was told I don't have to. My attorney told me I don't have to pay rent. The government's saying we don't have to pay rent, so I'm not going to pay rent. And this guy worked from home before COVID even happened, and he made a good living. And he just decided
he wasn't going to pay rent. So I called him and I tried to talk some sense into him. I was like, hey, look, more than likely the government's not going to bail out all these tenants from paying rent. So you're still going to owe this plus late fees. And you're probably, unless you have that money just sitting aside when that money is now owed and has to be paid, you're probably going to have to get evicted and have an eviction on your record. And I'm going to file a judgment. I'm going to stifle your paycheck. All this stuff that could happen that's negative to you, right? And he's just like, well, too bad, so sad. Like I don't have to pay my rent. Deal with it. And after I reviewed my lease and came up with this in my head, I called him back and I was like, hey, look, I understand you feel that you don't need to pay your rent. I'm like, however, as your landlord, I can use the lease, what's in the lease, to my advantage. And he's like, what's that mean? I was like, well, since you're not paying your rent, I need to make sure my property's not being destroyed. So I'm going to come to your house every single day. I'm gonna give you 24 hours notice. I'm gonna come to your house. I'm not sure how long that tour is gonna last. I might be there for 10 minutes. I might be there for a couple hours. Maybe I bring my lunch and my Nintendo Switch and I hang out and we're gonna get to know each other really well over these next couple months because I need to make sure that my property is protected since you're not paying me rent. He's like, you can't do that. I'm like, talk to your attorney.
Yeah.
And we hung up the phone, and then I shot him a text message. I'll be to your house tomorrow between 1 and 2 o'clock. I look forward to seeing you. Whatever. Next day, I packed my lunch and my Nintendo Switch and ready to go out. And I was actually oddly kind of excited about this because I'm like, I get to go out of the house. I get
Yeah,
to go
right.
do
Oh yeah,
something,
that
right?
time. Yeah.
Yeah, and I was gonna wear a mask and do everything the right way and all that. And I literally get in my car and I'm pulling out of the driveway and my watch goes off. 'Cause yeah, I have a smartwatch and I see it's from him. So I pulled over and I looked at it and he said, checks in the mail do not come here.
Oh man. How many months did that go on?
That was the first month. He
Oh
didn't he
wow.
didn't pay. It was like that was April
And
1st.
he had no backbone then.
Yeah. Oh, he just didn't want to deal with me. I don't blame him. Like if
Yeah.
I was renting, I would want my landlord in my house every
Yeah.
single
No,
day. Like
absolutely
who wants
not.
that invasion of privacy, right? But
Yeah.
it's in my lease that I can come in for any reason with 24 hours notice. And
Yeah.
so I was like, that's the one loophole I had.
Yeah. That was such a wild time though too, because I mean we were buying a house, which panned out to be great for us. Like that was like right before, like that was like, so we made the offer in March. Everything kind of like, started shutting down in February timeframe. So I remember my wife looking at me and she's like, are we doing a bad decision buying a house during a pandemic? I'm like, I'm an accountant. There's always going to be a work out there somewhere. So, I mean, at the time, it went from, I had a staff of 15 people. We got cut down to three just to kind of keep the stuff flowing. And, I was the top of those three. So if we had to let go of somebody else, I had two more people to kind of shield that impact. And at the time, I was already looking to get out of that job. But, I was like, so let's just go for it. We always made sure we did something that made sense. So like if for whatever reason, non-pandemic, if we could afford a home, it would just be on one of our incomes. So that's, we went with that thinking in mind, and that's where we bought then. Um, and now it's like my wife sometimes, and I do it too. We'll be like, man, I just wish we had like a little bit more space. So, but like we have that awesome interest rate, and so again, we made the offer in March. It actually worked out. Well, like I said, you couldn't show homes or anything. So with the homeowners had to take us for a tour of their house, which is the most awkward thing I think I've ever had to deal with because you can't make a face if you don't like something. If something looks like it's broken, you can't really. It just felt weird. So, but then the husband he bought our townhouse in return. So like that agent had a great month for not having any kind of ability to sell. But
Wait, were they going through a divorce or
yeah,
something?
yeah,
Really? And
yeah.
he was just like, oh, I kind of like your townhouse.
Well, so like it's funny because we didn't know this back when we bought the townhouse. We did so once we were told this as we were selling it, it made sense because we looked at all of our neighbors. It was actually known as divorce court because everybody in there was divorced. And then there'd be like a small family here and there, but for the most part, it was just single people in a townhouse. And so yeah, he went into divorce court. But yeah, so yeah, they were going through a divorce. He bought our townhouse and we bought the house and but like this was like back before, housing prices were just starting to go up and up. Like when we bought it, we were actually able to have them take money off of the price of the house. So I just feel like we bought right at the right time. Interest rates were great. We were able to kind of negotiate, but I mean, yeah, that's tale of two stories. I don't know. You kind of had to deal with the headache of it all, and I got to reap the rewards of it.
Yeah, I mean, well, a couple things there. If I mean, first things first, I've probably been involved in over 1,000 real estate transactions in my career, if you include my investment stuff too. And I've never heard of that to where the seller bought the buyer's house.
Yeah,
I've never heard of that.
it was definitely weird. I mean, like even to like our utilities like Comcast, like I got his package deal, and I'm like, no, I wanted more channels or whatever. So like, it was just like, yeah, I mean, it was like they were just so confused. Everybody was just like, that's just so odd. But
It is odd. It's very,
yeah,
I mean, I've seen it where like investors will buy somebody's house to, and then move them
yeah,
into like one of their rentals or something
yeah,
in order to acquire a house, but never, nothing
like
like
a
that
house
where two
swap.
owner
Yeah,
occupants house swapped. Yeah,
yeah.
that's some,
And the a really funny story there is the daughter was maybe like sophomore, junior in high school, and a young kid came by and it was like, "Hey, is so and so home?" And he wanted to ask her to homecoming or prom or one of the two. And my wife's like, "No, no, I know where they live though." So it's just like really funny. But yeah, I mean, we've had like I get his mail still, and he sometimes gets mine, and it's kind of funny. But yeah, it's just a weird way that it all came to be.
well, the only thing I can tell you is if you want more space, and I probably have told you this before, but like I mean, you might as well still buy now because like
Yeah,
a 6.5% interest rate or six or where we're at right now. I think it's around six actually
it's
right now.
6.69. I think they just dropped it to or something like that.
6.69. I think you can get lower than that, depending on where your
Yeah,
credit score is and stuff like that. But even still, let's call it a 7% interest rate. Even at 7%, you're significantly below the average
yeah,
over the last 100 years, including the last 2 decades of just craziness that
yeah,
we've gone through, right? Because really since '08 is when rates just crashed and, have kind of stayed pretty low. I mean, I think
yeah,
the highest we've seen is right now since 2008. And if you actually look at the history, which I'm big on, know your history because it tends to
yeah.
repeat itself. The last time prior to 2008 that we saw rates below 5% was like 1938.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's where like I always look at it. I just more so look at like, does it make sense to do it or do I mean, so you come going back to your question, where am I investing in? I mean, I'm just trying to be careful and even like my personal side. I actually did like a personal budget, which I don't know if I actually follow it, but I actually built one out as I was doing my business budget because I want to just truly see like where do I need to make changes so that I can bring somebody in to help grow this thing? Because that's just kind of where my focus is at right now. Because I just don't want to be, you know, 5 text messages deep and have to respond to all of them, then have to go make a phone call and then look at my email. I want to kind of spread that to other people so that they're kind of handling things as well, and it's not just dependent upon me to get answers out. So, um, yeah, I mean, I think ultimately, we have the 3 kids, and so we're kind of filled there in terms of number of rooms and whatnot. But they're going to get bigger. 3 boys, they're just already running around causing chaos. So maybe one day, but we go back and forth. Like, do we want to get a swimming pool at the house? Do we want to buy a place with the pool? I don't know. I mean, I don't really want to put a pool in because I understand that doesn't add value to a home. But to me, it's like one of the most
In
expensive things you'll ever do.
in Western Pennsylvania, it does not really add value to a home. A lot
Yeah.
of people don't. The golden rule is you make friends with people who have boats and pools,
Yeah.
right? Like
Right.
that's you don't own those. You make friends with people who have
Yeah.
those because the maintenance and the headache and
Yeah.
all that involved. And actually, I just had a closing where literally the pool almost blew up the closing because
Man.
they didn't clean the
Mm.
pool properly
Yeah.
and like he's closing and it was weird because like end of September or whatever and it was still kind of warm and he's like I wanted to use the pool this
Yeah.
weekend and it was green like it was
Uh,
nasty, right? And so we had to look up like how much it cost to have pools cleaned by like a professional
yeah.
company and try to negotiate that and it almost blew up off of that.
Wow.
So
Wow.
but yeah, no, it's still a great time to buy. I mean,
Yeah.
interest rate wise, because I really think in the next 5 to 7 years we're gonna get up in that 10-12% range,
That's crazy.
and it's probably gonna stay like that for a while. I mean, I think
Yeah.
that's probably people think that's crazy, but it's really not. If you look at the history,
To me,
in the
that's,
'80s it got as high as 24%.
but then you look at the value of the homes and everything. It's just the cost becomes almost a multiplier to that percentage rate. I mean, so when things were those 10, 20%, whatever, I mean, the base price of the home was just not what they are today. So, I mean, it just
I
really hurts. I mean, I'll say this. people's incomes are not growing at that rate
That I would
to make
so
up
that's
for
what I
it.
was gonna say. I agree with you to a point, but I think the major problem is that the income hasn't gone up
Yeah.
in the amount that the housing prices has gone up, right?
Yeah.
And that's why I don't think it's ever going to get back to 20%, but I do think it's going to get in that 10, 12% at some point. And maybe I'm wrong, but it's just one of those things where I'm kind of planning ahead for that. And that's something that you got to
Yeah.
think about. But it's still overall 7% is still a really good interest rate if you
Yeah.
look at the history.
Yeah. I mean, we were new homeowners. Our townhouse was like 4.25. So we've only never known anything below five. So, and then just, me being the accountant, obviously I play the numbers game. I start to not get happy when I see that I can be making more. I'm sorry, even if I put that money into like an investment, it's not going to bring back as much of a return. So, um,
Could
yeah,
always build an addition onto your house.
yeah, there's that too. And we went through that whole. We go through it all. So, I don't know. We'll see what ends up happening for the right now, but we'll deal with it.
Could you rent your house out and make some money or
I don't know how that works. Like, I mean, I know how it works, but like to rent a full house of that caliber, like, are there truly renters out there looking for a whole home?
100%? There are. You just, it might take you a little bit longer to, like, if you're talking like 3, 4 grand a month type of
Yeah,
rental, it takes a little bit longer to rent them. But actually, one of my, not Matt, but one of my other attorneys that I know and use a lot, him and his wife, they live do you know where Newberry is?
I've heard of it.
Okay, well, they live in the Newberry complex, and it's like real nice colonial new builds. Well, they bought a 4 bedroom townhouse. It's going to be their eventual move into in the Newberry complex. So they're already in there, but they bought another unit, and then they rented that unit out. And I mean, it's like a $3,500 rental or something.
Yes.
He ended up selling it because it was just too much of a headache to keep renting.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, he had a Pittsburgh Steeler rented at one point in time. So you do have high net worth individuals that want to live in nice communities and are willing to pay for it. You just got to be patient.
Yeah.
But you would have to, and you and I can go and break it down one time, but you just would have to come up with like what it actually could rent for. And then if
Yeah.
it makes sense financially, that could maybe be the difference between what
Yeah.
you're paying in interest rate.
I mean, I'll say we were again bought at the right time compared to the even like our neighbors down the road. I think their house sold for $80,000 6 months later, something like that. So I mean, it was just a difference of timing, realistically.
$80,000 more?
Yeah, than what
Oh,
we bought ours for. Yeah,
okay.
I'm not sure what I said, but
You said 80, it's sold for $80,000. I was like,
yeah,
$80,000
sorry,
more?
more.
Yeah,
But yeah,
that's
so
crazy.
I mean, it's just the difference of timing and everything. So I mean, ultimately, I don't know. I don't know if I'd really want to be dealing with two mortgages, and that goes back to the headache of having a tenant and stuff like that. I just don't know if I could ever truly live that life.
There was only one way to find out,
Yeah.
You just make that decision inside of 2 years so you don't have to pay
Yeah.
the capital gains tax when you sell it, right? Is it
Well,
2 years or five
so,
years?
so you have to live in it for 2.5 years. That's to be your primary residence for 2.5 out of 5 years of
Okay.
the most recent 5 years, I think.
So you'd have to make your
I'd be
decision
fine.
within 5 years then.
I'm fine now because we've been there for 4 years.
Okay. But like if you rented it though, you'd have to
Oh
make that
yeah.
decision within 5 years, right?
So yeah, if I started renting it, I'd have to, I guess technically, whatever the math works out. Yeah, 5 years from 2.5 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm. I mean, at least you know the actual policies
Yeah.
in and out to make sure you don't get caught. But
Yeah.
all right, a couple more quick questions and I'll let you go. What's your like favorite like dream vacation that you want to take? We
Uh,
talked about disconnecting. Neither one
yeah.
of you or I disconnect very often.
Yeah.
Like if you were able to just get a week to disconnect and go anywhere, where would you go?
So we did our honeymoon in Jamaica, which I absolutely loved. And then we went to Cayman Islands shortly thereafter, which I really enjoyed both of those. So just going back to one of those two places would probably be a quick answer. But at the same time, like I'd want to see more of the Caribbean. Maybe I don't know if it'd be. I'm not really a cruise person, but I mean, yeah, probably anything with the beach, really. Good weather, just something that all inclusive, probably
I
at this
love I
point.
love all inclusive. My
Yeah,
favorite. Well, for me, because I don't disconnect, I have consistent Wi-Fi. Although the cruise ships are getting better with Wi-Fi
yeah.
nowadays, but I have consistent Wi-Fi. There's everything you need is right there. You can still do your excursions and have a little fun. But
See, I don't even want Wi-Fi because that going back to my honeymoon, like I had just started my new job and So I didn't have responsibilities, and nobody was going to call me or need me for anything. So I truly left my phone in the hotel room every day for 6, 7 days, however long we were there, and never once did I wish I had Wi-Fi. I was just enjoying the area, understanding what people mean when they are talking about the farmer. The farmer's not really anybody you want to be associated with, but there's just like going on these excursions and just enjoying our time. Like that was probably the best vacation ever. So if not to just relive it, then go back there. And I mean, now I have kids and I enjoy my time with them. So it'd be hard to not want to take kids, but at the same time, I don't want to deal with the kids at the same time. So if that makes sense.
Okay, so if you're taking your kids, I got one for you, and actually I can get you a discount because it's part of my vacation club package. But the Nickelodeon Resort in Punta Cana,
Okay.
fantastic. Like it's great for kids. They got a water park on site.
Yes.
They got a kids club where you could drop the kids off and have a couple hours alone together.
Yeah.
All kinds of stuff. It was the perfect family vacation.
That's good to know. But I just don't know if I ever want to go back. I don't really want to I'm not a huge Disney person. We've gone to Disney a couple times, but like it's for the kids. I'm not there to have all that much fun. It's fun to see them have fun. Some of the rides are fun, sure, but I mean, we're talking five and under at this point. So
Yeah, I hate Disney. I love that's just why I am not a Disney
yeah.
vacation club holder. The Nickelodeon resort though, like yes, it's themed Nickelodeon. They got some kids stuff, but like when you drop the kids off for a little while, like there's enough adult stuff there
Okay.
that you can get a private cabana on the beach. You can have a nice high end steak dinner together,
Yeah.
and it's not Disney where your steak's going to be in the shape of Mickey Mouse, right?
Yeah.
Like that
Right.
they did that right because that drives me crazy. I went on a Disney cruise, and I'm not an alcoholic, but I like to drink a little bit and have a good time, especially if I'm on vacation, right? And my travel planner, his name's Rusty. He's amazing. If you ever need a good one, he booked it right, and he called me. He's like, so just before I booked this, he's like, just know that Disney, unlike the other cruises you've been on, they don't have a drink package. And I was like, okay, well that sucks, but like what's the alternative? You just gotta pay for every drink. And he's like, well, you can take like a bottle each on, with you of like wine or something. He's like, and then they have these passports. And I was like, oh, passport, what's that? And he's like, you spend $150, you get 10 they have a margarita bar. He's like, or not a margarita, a martini bar. He's like, you get 10 martinis from all around the world. I was like, okay, well, that's 2 nights. I can get like a nice little buzz going, have, once the kids go to bed or whatever. I'm like, okay, I'll do that. First night I get there, I was like stressed out. We had a really crazy day with getting through packages and small children and all this stuff.
Yeah.
My kids passed out, my wife passed out, and I was just like, okay, I'm going to the martini bar. I grabbed my laptop, I'm banging at work. I had my second martini. I'm not even buzzed, right? Put my glass on the counter, and I asked for the next one on the list, and they're like, "Oh, we think that's enough for you tonight, sir." And I was like, "What are you talking about?" They're like, "Oh, this is a family,
Oh
cruise."
man.
And I was like, "Wow." I was like, "This is crazy." So I just grab my laptop and I go across to the sports bar, like across the hall. And everywhere you go, they scan the stupid bracelet that you're wearing, and they're
Yeah.
just like, "Oh, you've been shut off, sir."
Oh wow.
I was completely shut off after two martinis. I was so mad.
Yeah.
I was so mad. So I will never do another Disney. All right. Last question. What's retirement look like for you?
Oh, man, that's so far away yet. Honestly, like I think about it uh, very infrequently. So, um, I know CPAs that have worked well into their 70s. I don't think that's me. I don't want to be grinding it out during tax time and things like that. Um, there's a thought to possibly grow the business big enough to be able to sell it at some point. And that's probably another 20, 25 years down the road, if at all. I mean, maybe the kids go to be an accountant, they want to take over the business. I don't, so there's a number of things that could be there. And then,
Would you really wish that on your kid?
I honestly, we go back and forth all the time. I mean, yes,
I
we,
guess it's in the family. Her family's
yeah.
CPA. Okay.
So, I mean, like it's a great field to get into. I will sometimes say like maybe I should have been a lawyer, but then I hate reading, so then that made no sense. And then, but like the earning potential, realistically, if you do it right, I mean, accountants can do very well. There's less accountants coming into the market or into the field than going out. Yeah. So, I mean, they're just retiring. I mean, the baby boomers, and I think every industry is going to have it. But I mean, I have a client, he's an orthodontist, and he's like, we are hurting for people to come into the industry. So, um, I don't know. You look at your kids, you kind of know who can do what, and you kind of know their strengths. So like I already like my one son is queasy, so if he sees any bit of blood, he just goes completely white, and so he's not a doctor. So I don't know, but you just look at him. But I mean, yeah, you want the best for him. I would not be mad if they went into the field. I did very well. Nobody in my family prior to my sisters and I went to college, but even still, it's about what you go to school for and make of it that actually determines how well you do. So, retirement, I don't know. It's a long ways away yet. I'm just kind of focused on the next 10 years.
How old are you?
I'm going to be 33.
Okay, so I'm
So,
a little older than you. I'm 37 going on. I'll be 38 next year.
yeah.
And I think retirement's like real close for me. Like I'm gonna if I'm still in the same now, retirement for me isn't like just never work again,
Yeah.
be on a golf course, whatever. I might golf more when I'm retired, but my retirement's just gonna be I'm retiring from real estate,
Hmm.
and I'm whatever goes after that, it will be my next journey, I guess, and hopefully it's something I could do from just about anywhere because I do want to travel a lot. But I mean, if I'm still doing real estate past 50, I want you to like pull me aside, like, bro, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Because
No.
it's a young man's game, it really is.
Yeah.
And I've seen it too many times. I see it with my partner all the time. I love Alex. He's a great guy, but like he just he doesn't have the patience now. He like he
That's
did.
I already know like my patience now compared to 10 years ago is less. So like I mean that's another thing. Like I don't know. That's a big factor in it. And maybe it's just because I have young kids, but maybe I'll gain some of that back in the next 10 years. I don't
Uh,
know.
I already
But
see myself becoming because I've been in the industry for going on 15 years now,
yeah.
and I've been investing even longer than that. And it's just like I see myself becoming less and less patient,
Yeah.
to the point where I'll just straight like snap. If they, I don't have patience for stupidity, so I'll just like snap on an agent and be like, dude, no.
Yeah.
Like I had a closing. My buddy Jason and I were buying a property in Bridgeville, and the agent it was a long story like but essentially there was supposed to be stuff left in the building. It was a commercial building, and we show up and all the important stuff is gone and there's just a bunch of garbage laying everywhere.
Yeah.
And I was just like, yeah, we need a credit now of like $5,000. We were going to sell some of that stuff to make up for the fact that we had to clean out the building. And she's like, oh, we'll just put it back on the market. And I'm like, oh, well, then I'm going to file less pendants and take your ass to court. And,
Yeah.
like, I just don't have patience anymore. And
Yeah.
he's even further along than that because he's been in it even longer than I have. And then you get past a certain point to where now you get the Joe Biden-esque people that are just like clearly delusional and they're still
Yeah.
trying to do real estate. And the worst one is when I call them and say, hey, what email can I send this contract to? And they're like, oh, you could fax me at, and I'm like, fax you? I don't have a fax machine. Like I
Yeah.
haven't used a fax my whole career, but
Yeah, no, I know. I know the feeling. I mean, I definitely. I mean, when I was working first 2 years out of school, the partner would. I was right across the hall from him the last couple of months there. He was sleeping at his desk. I mean, he had Netflix on his screen. He's sleeping. I'm like, I don't want that even. Like, I don't. If I'm gonna sleep, I want to be in a bed. You know what I mean? So I
or
don't
in a
want to.
comfy recliner or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's like, and it was always the best part too, walking by and seeing him like jolt awake. But
Alex has his nap time. It's between like 1:30 and 2:30. Like if you go in his office door will be locked, he's in there taking a nap.
Hey, I guess they've earned it. But no, I just don't want I don't want to be doing that. So I mean, I don't know. I'll take it as in stride, but ultimately I think consulting realistically is kind of the way to go. I think that's the way most people go in the professional fields is you don't really want to be doing the 9 to 5, take on a couple clients here and there and go from that point. So I already kind of feel like I'm kind of going down that path. So it's easy to kind of see that if that's a good answer.
Well, when I'm 50, my daughter will be 26. Unfortunately for me, my daughter shows zero interest in real estate. Like zero.
Yeah.
Like I try to get her interested at all, and it just right over her head. She wants to do, other things. She wants to be their fashion designer or
Yeah.
I think she's gonna end up being like a veterinarian. She loves animals.
Yeah.
But we'll see. But hopefully they change their mind and I get one of my kids in the business and then
Yeah.
they could take it over. But
Hey,
uh,
if you told me 10 years ago I'd be doing this, I probably wouldn't have believed it, but here I am. I enjoy it. and the kids do show interest, but they're also their own individuals. So we'll see what happens with them.
All right, Bill, where can people get in touch with you at if they want to reach out about your services?
Yeah, email's probably best at this point. Musto at wmcpaconsulting.com. It's a long one. I apologize. But yeah, that's probably the best way. Really at this point, I'm just trying to be careful, growing smart. So I do work with some startup businesses, but ultimately, if you kind of need somebody that's a little bit more hands-on and going to be there, you might want to find like somebody that has a bigger team. I'm not going to sugarcoat that, but I'll say we are good for project stuff. We're good to, kind of maintain files and help them grow. But startups are just a different animal. So I just want to be careful with them.
Well, when you're ready to grow, reach out to me and we'll put a game plan together. All
Sounds
right.
good.
All right. Thanks, Bill. Appreciate you,
Thank
brother.
you. Have a good one.